Did you see where Hillary Clinton said that if you hear anything about Wikileaks the next few days, it's all going to be fiction. It's all going to be made up. Pay no attention to the Clinton family crime network. Just go ahead and vote for your free stuff come Tuesday. Seems to be working as far as the polling data that I'm gathering this morning should tell us. Just keep in mind, Brexit wasn't supposed to pass. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. 35, and coming up on 8 minutes after 9 o'clock, WikiLeaks. Well, this is an impressive dump that took place over the last few days. Wish it had come a few days earlier. I don't know that Julian Assange really has an idea about how American public opinion works. It takes a few days to digest everything. A Daily Caller has this. CNN asked DNC, that's the Democrat National Committee, and CNN is Clinton News Network, for questions for interviews with Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. Clinton News Network asked the Democrat National Committee for questions during interviews earlier this year, emails released by WikiLeaks on Sunday's show. The group of DNC staffers submitted numerous questions for Wolf Blitzer to ask of the real estate billionaire, but the interview ended up being canceled. So the DNC staff was informed in a follow-up email, to which one of them responded, boo. So there you have it. In other words, do our work for us. Do you think that there's collusion between the media and the Clintonistas? Come on. That's a rhetorical question. How about this, also from the Daily Caller, which is really digging into this. An email with the subject Morning Joe sent from DNC Communications Director Luis Miranda. Is that a real American's name? To the DNC National Press Secretary Mark Pastenbach reads, blanking Joe claiming the system is rigged, party against him. We need to complain to their producer. Now, they didn't say blanking. They said a much dirtier word, but they are actually working for the Clinton crime family. The DNC's eagerness to complain to MSDNC producers to quiet Morning Joe host Joe Scarborough's criticisms falls in line with previously leaked emails that show a tight relationship between members of both the DNC and the Clinton campaign with the media. If these people were to get a stranglehold, not only on the White House for another 4 years, but as well as perhaps the House and Senate in Washington, if they already have issues with people at their own broadcast networks, such as Joe Scarborough, who was mightily docile over the summer, you wonder if it's already had an impact there. What will they do if they get power? And then they'll go after the people on the internet who don't agree with them or the dissenters in talk radio. Think about that for a moment. Think about how they plan to run the country. They don't believe in the Constitution. They just think it's something that you wipe your bottom with and that they should make it up as they go along. Also from the Daily Caller, Washington Post columnist Dana Milbank appears to have asked the Democrat National Committee to do the majority of the research for a negative column he wrote about Donald Trump in April of this year. Internal DNC emails suggest that Milbank asked for and then even leaned heavily on the DNC opposition research team to get details for Trump for the article. The research team worked together to come up with a list of things Milbank that could then use, and it was a top 10 list of sorts, and the DNC essentially wrote it for the man. And they claim they're not in collusion. So the Daily Caller, as I said, has been all over this, and it has this. Former President Bill Clinton, who previously took flack for mocking the coal people in West Virginia and Kentucky, accused coal country of being the most anti-immigrant part of America while speaking at a private fundraiser for Hillary Clinton. Who do these people represent? Do they represent Americans or do they represent the rest of the world? Well, I guess that question is answered quite simply. If you look at the Drudge Report, the big screaming headline there today is, the president has told the rest of the world to vote in this election. It's criminal, folks. It is treason. At one time, they would have taken these people for their actions and they would have put them up against a wall or dangled them from a rope from a tree branch. Today, they end up creating foundations and making billions of dollars and taking away your liberties. And the media just says, ho hum. Because, some newspaper editor got to marry his his beloved, which he couldn't do before the Democrats actually got a stranglehold on this country. 12, and that's what's really important to these people. 12 minutes after 9 o'clock, or going in, some 35-year-old pervert going into the locker room or the potty with your 3-year-old girl. That's what they want. To them, that's what America should become. It's one great big Sodom and Gomorrah. You can reach our program today by dialing 736-0300, 736-0300. The opposition, even though a lot of people weren't on board early with Donald Trump and the Republican Party, I will say I'm impressed by the number of people who have coalesced around him just simply because they see what's going on here, and it makes them think, you know what? If they're rigging the game against him, what are they going to do to the little guy like me? And yet, even among conservative elites, such as David Brooks, he is the what do you call, token conservative columnist at the New York Times, also employed by PBS, which is it's socialist broadcasting. He was speaking on Friday night on a program there. All I can tell you, listen to this guy for a moment, what he says about Trump voters. I'm not in any way ashamed that I used to beat David Brooks up and take his lunch money on the playground.
Less educated or high school educated whites are going to Trump. It doesn't matter what the guy does. And college educated going to Clinton. I mean, everyone's dividing based on demographic categories, and sometimes you get the sense the campaign barely matters. People are just going with their gene pool or whatever it is. And that is one of the more depressing aspects.
See, if you don't live in Manhattan like he does or on the left coast, you have a shallow gene pool, you see, because his is really good. Yeah, just trust him. I mean, this is the type of guy who would probably wet himself if you ran into him in an alley, and even if you weren't threatening him. And yet he's criticizing your gene pool. This arrogance that has run through. You've got people like he and George Will, who, if you didn't know them, you would think they may be married to each other. And yet they're sitting there telling the rest of America how it. And then you got the guys over at National Review, all of the young conservatives who run that outfit. They all have 13-inch collars, and they all, they get their beer muscles on and once again insult everybody else. If you live in West Virginia any longer, you're an orphan. Or if you live, I guess, in Idaho or Wyoming or Nebraska, you're a political orphan because the conservatives don't care for you. They shun you, look down their noses at you. And the liberals don't care for you because they're hoovering up all the money from the wealthy folks out in the Hamptons on Long Island. That's how it's pronounced there. It's Long Island or Long Island. They're hoovering up all the money from them or the Hollywood types. And those of you in Flyover Company, you're blamed for the fact that a Chinaman or a Mexican took your job. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley on Top Story. Right now it's 37. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Bill. Just wanted to drop a little tidbit. Thanks to Fox News, I had to listen to a little bit of Clinton's speech in Florida when she was getting rained on, and it was amazing how her voice came through. It was like a person that should be wearing a tall black hat and carrying a broom. Anyway, and that's the way she came across. And now we're doing the Pied Piper routine by having all of these so-called important musical people out there wheeling people into her whatever you call it.
You've got people who are on stage with her who've been singing about killing police officers.
I know. And if you and I did that, we would have been locked up a long time ago. But and our young people and our middle-aged people are listening to this stuff. To me, that, oh my goodness, that has no sound common sense to the common American psyche at all. And I believe that we do have a great deal of people in this country who are smarter than that. And I think they're all going to be out voting tomorrow.
Gosh, we can only pray. Motivation, I think, thank you for the call. The motivation should be simple for everybody. There shouldn't be you shouldn't need any prodding. Actually, I looked at, speaking of Clinton getting rained on, I looked at the weather forecast. Most of the country looks high and dry tomorrow. So for those people, as Randy mentioned in the last segment of the program, Randy Sapolis from Idaho Weekly Briefing, 2/3 of registered voters in Nevada have already turned out, and of course, media is crowing that they all voted for Hillary Clinton. I guess media was in the booth when they actually cast their ballots, or media knows that that of that 2/3, half of them were illegal aliens voting, so they can get another piece of the pie because they apparently people from Latin America feel that you owe them whatever you've got. It's the equivalent. They're coming into this country. They may as well come into your house. I guess some of them are, but come into your house, open your refrigerator and your cupboards, and just start devouring your food, because that's what they're doing on the national level. And we're told if you don't like it, tough tea cakes. They'll throw you an EBT card, and you can go live in some hovel in West Virginia until, of course, the money runs out. And then what? Well, gosh, we'll take it from the rich. I'm sorry, the rich will get on a jet and they'll leave. And then you won't be able to take it from them. You got it? Plus, those are the same rich who gave you campaign contributions, Mrs. Clinton. And they're not going to allow you. They didn't give you money because they liked your looks. Oh, no, 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 no. They gave you money because they expect something in return. What's going to happen if she actually comes up on the short end of this on Wednesday morning? Yeah, I think something like that. You'll see joy in the streets of Mudville, that's for sure. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com. I was saving that for Wednesday. I just don't know if I'll get a chance to play it, so I might as well air it now. I do want to point out, coming up tomorrow, we have no political guests on Election Day, simply because if somebody would say something inflammatory, there wouldn't be any opportunity for an opponent to respond if an opponent indeed decided to do that. I heard from no Democrats who wanted an appearance on the program. Now, I'm nice to everybody that walks in the studio, but do you think that perhaps they know that I might ask them a question that would put them on the spot? And they don't want that, because it's all about subterfuge in that political party. I turned my heat on over the weekend to make sure it worked just for a few hours. We are getting into a cooler part of the year. I just want to remind people out there, I'm going to recommend that if you've not yet done that, you need to get in touch with the pros at Ramsey Heating and Electric to make sure, if you've got a glitch in your heating system, that the job gets done right, and it gets done right the first time. Problem-free cozy winters are found at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Telephone number 678-0459. That's Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. Before we wrap up the program today, I'm going to share Donald Trump's closing pitch with you. That's on the way on NewsRadio1310.com. Donald Trump had an opportunity to, in many ways, he's still on the road today. In fact, he's in Florida, Sarasota. I'm understanding right now he's giving some live remarks. But he was bouncing around between Pennsylvania, Virginia, for a guy who's 70 years old, he's got a lot of energy. No one has to carry him to the van, and they don't have to have a bed in the back of it so he can take a nap in between stops, like some candidates have. This is Trump, though, speaking in Pennsylvania, combination of Pennsylvania as well as Virginia. Virginia, I don't know. Highly unlikely with all of the convicted felons there who'll be voting, that they'll be voting for a Republican who's tough on crime. So it may have been a bit of a waste of his time. On the other hand, he's right in the backyard of all of the mainstream media's Washington bureaus. Take a listen for a moment.
And you have all of the dishonest reporters. I have to give them credit. They followed me around all over the place. They're exhausted. Look at that. See the cameras? They're sagging. She cheated like a dog, and nobody talks about it. Given to her by Donna Brazil. Nobody cares. If I got them, it would not be a pretty picture. They would reinstitute the electric chair, right? The investigations into her crimes will go on for a long, long time. The rank and file special agents at the FBI won't let her get away with these terrible crimes.
I was thinking about some of the media's behavior the other day. Happened to have a TV show on the background, and as I mentioned to a caller in the last hour of the program, A lot of people are now putting their trust in alternative sites online, but you don't even know who many of these sites are. But you could say that mainstream media is partially responsible for that since their own credibility has been destroyed. This thing called the Denver Gazette, which claimed that an FBI agent who supposedly was involved in a murder-suicide, the claim was that he was a whistleblower and that he had been providing WikiLeaks with Clinton emails. Well, that's not true. The Denver Gazette is a fraudulent website. So somebody was just trying to take advantage of that situation. Indeed, it was a murder-suicide. It had nothing to do with the email dump. But why would people believe that, or why would they turn to that? Because they can no longer trust mainstream media after the way it's behaved, but they're not even apologetic about it. They're not in any way apologetic about being in the tank for Hillary Clinton. And that comment last week from Chris Cuomo at Clinton News Network that we have to protect the people, that's our job. No, it's not your job. It is the job of law enforcement and the U.S. military to protect us. Media's job traditionally was to provide the facts. And yet, somehow, they believe, along with people like David Brooks, that the rest of you dumb dummies don't know what you're doing, so they have to come in and clean everything up. If this country goes up in flames, if not necessarily Wednesday, but it goes up in flames sometime in the next couple of years with the criminal Clinton cabal in charge, you can only look at the media and say, may God have mercy on your souls, because what's going to happen to those people? They're complaining right now about how they're being abused verbally at Trump rallies. I would think that they should. When I was working as a reporter, I was often threatened on the street while I was working. And I'm telling you, I didn't consider it unusual. I considered it part of the job. That's what you wanted to do. That was what you learned to expect. But if they think that that verbal abuse is where it's going to end, if they continue down this perfidious stretch of highway, I would just, as a friend of many of those people, I would warn them, this is not going to be good for your health in the long run. What does a Clinton presidency mean for those of you who actually own firearms? We had a bit of a discussion about that, without naming names of any candidates, on Friday. But David Keene, writing today at the Washington Times, says Clinton claims that her position on guns is being misrepresented by Donald Trump and the National Rifle Association. The charge claimed Mrs. Clinton, the writer says, and her allies is absurd, arguing that she had never said she would actually abolish the Second Amendment. Of course, this from the same crowd that said, no, we want civil unions. We'll never actually ask for same-sex marriage. No. You get the idea. She and her supporters are right in a very narrow Clintonian sense. One's reading of her words depends on their meaning as she interprets them. Mrs. Clinton has never said outright that she wants the words of the Second Amendment erased, just reinterpreted in a way that would accomplish exactly the same thing. What she has said is that the landmark 2008 Supreme Court decision recognizing that the founders included the Second Amendment in our Bill of Rights to prevent the government from denying citizens the individual right to keep and bear arms to defend themselves, their family, and their homes was, quote, wrongly decided, unquote. So, this is a woman who, once she gets her hands on and the Clintons, that's all. They just the greed when it comes to hoovering up money or power. Nothing will get in her way. Nothing. Got that? Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com. And they'll wonder after Election Day why there's a run on ammunition and firearms. We've got more coming up in just a moment. As I pointed out a few minutes ago, I'm going to share with you Donald Trump's closing remarks. They're about 5 minutes long. This is from a YouTube video where he's making his last pitch to the American people. I'll share that with you coming up, and then I'd like to get a little bit of your reaction to what he has to say. It may be his finest moment.